Today we're talking about Companion. I'm Gil. I'm here with my brother Daniel. Say hello.
Hello.
What did you think of Companion? And what did you know about it going in?
So I did know that she was a robot, unfortunately, but that's about it. I really liked the movie. It was not the vibe I expected. I thought it was going to be much more on the horror side than the comedy side, which I think I was pleasantly surprised by. But most of all, I was disappointed that I didn't leave the movie wondering, what was this movie really about? I was like really hoping I would leave it wondering that, because for those who don't know, we have a successful video series where we explain what a video is really about. And yeah, unfortunately, couldn't do it for this one.
What a movie is really about. And when we say that, it doesn't mean this is the end all be all sole interpretation of the movie. When we say really about, what we mean is imagine you're in English class and the teacher says, well, what's Dracula about? And you're like, well, it's about a vampire. She's like, no. What's it really about? It's about getting to the heart of the movie's themes and the deeper meaning. So Daniel's been on the hunt for movies that can fit that series because he recently wrote his first one with Heretic. And that video did gangbusters for about 2 hours. We were hoping this movie would be another. I do actually think it could have worked. There are some themes that we'll discuss in today's episode. But I largely agree with what you said. Actually, I was very happy with this movie because this podcast has been a bummer the last few episodes. Especially, I mean, it's one thing when we're talking about Venom 3. Nobody likes that movie. So it's just fun to rip on it for an hour and a half. But then it was a few episodes of everybody loves this. I don't love it. Or Daniel, are you ready to stop pretending that you don't like something everybody else likes just for attention? Are you ready to just start giving your honest opinion? So I liked Companion. I was very pleasantly surprised. I knew almost nothing about it. It was one of those perfect blends of a little bit of horror, also comedy, and also a little bit of sci-fi. But the sci-fi wasn't just there to create a comedic scenario. It also did the great thing sci-fi does, which is show us a possible future, open an avenue to ask some questions and wonder, where are we going with all this AI stuff? Oh, I've never seen that before. Well, we've seen a lot of AI, but I do think this takes it in the specific direction of what is it going to mean for relationships? What's it going to mean for the way we interact with each other? So we'll get into all of that. But overall, really liked this movie. It was funny. Wouldn't say it was very scary. I mean, it's being marketed as horror. I almost think that's just a way to get people in the door. If I watched this movie clean, I would say sci-fi comedy thriller. I don't think the word horror would make my top 10 in terms of words describing this movie.
By the way, to after watching the movie and to get ready for this podcast, to really get a taste of what the future is like, I did a little bit of experimentation with an AI girlfriend.
I was gonna say it's a joke. You struck up a relationship with an AI, but that's where
Actually,
you're
I
going.
couldn't.
Tell me about it.
I couldn't afford to strike up the relationship. It was pushing me to connect my Coinbase wallet like immediately. Okay, so it's not what I thought it was going to be like, or maybe there's different AI girlfriends. But I tried out. I like set up a few different ones, and I go to it. All right, here's like the first one I set up. I thought I was gonna get like, I don't know, some like girl next door type that like will ask me how my day was, whatever. Instead, it immediately puts me into a poolside cleaning scenario where my neighbor has asked me to clean her pool for some extra cash.
I feel like you've lived a very sheltered life if you went into this expecting anything other than that.
No, because AI girlfriend, right? I thought that was different from going to, a certain kind of website and getting some AI experience,
Right,
whatever.
and what I'm
Like
saying
I
is,
just
I don't
searched
know why you thought that.
I just searched AI girlfriend on Google and these were the first results. By the way, I mean it's nuts. It immediately asked me to like link crypto wallets for micropayments, and there's all these different like models you can choose from, and they will generate images for you on the fly also. So anyway,
I
I
hope
am
you were in incognito mode.
I was not. You know what? Lately, I've like just stopped doing incognito mode. I said, you know what? What am I ashamed of?
I'm gonna let it fly. Should we jump into the recap? The movie begins with Iris and Josh's meet cute at a grocery store where he's, you know, looking at her and he's trying to grab some oranges, but he's so nervous he drops them all. And he's like, "Well, that was smooth." And she's like, "Yes, so smooth." And she's giving a little voiceover about those rare, meaningful moments in life. She's had two: the day she met Josh and the day she killed him. What? So this goes back to what you said earlier. You didn't know, I mean, you knew she was a robot going in. I think everybody watching this movie, virtually everybody, knows that Iris, the main character played by Sophie Thatcher, is a machine. The posters have her with those white eyes. I mean, the whole premise of the movie is that she is a companion bot. I saw the trailers for this a while ago, and I remember from what I recall, the initial trailers didn't really lean into the fact that she's a machine. And actually, that created a very interesting vibe because you're like, what is going on in this movie? You see a woman sitting at a table with her hand outstretched, and he puts a candle under her hand, and she's not moving for some reason. If you don't know she's a robot, that's very intriguing. But anyway, I forgot all the marketing somehow, just wiped it from memory. So I went into this movie with, I didn't even know there was a sci fi element. And what's really interesting, if you watch the movie without knowing that, it seems pretty clear the movie was written so that you wouldn't know that until about 25 minutes in. The fact that she's a machine is this what reveal. And there's a bunch of hints early on that seem obvious if you know. But if you don't know, and you're watching what seems like a romantic comedy, but you have the voiceover line of "when I killed him," so you're like, "Oh, this is going to be a weird thriller, dark comedy kind of thing." So for me, it was a very interesting viewing experience. And when I heard that, the day I killed him, it was shocking to me. But I also thought this is just a nice scene of two people meeting. Sophie Thatcher is a great actress. This is 2 weeks in a row of Sophie Thatcher because you just wrote that video on Heretic. I did a little bit of co-writing, and
A little bit.
what I didn't even realize. I mean, this is how immersed she gets in her role. I didn't realize till after. Oh, that's the same person from Heretic, and I thought she did a great job in both roles. Even just in this meeting scene, she's doing this thing with her mouth where she keeps like, okay, for those listening, she's like almost smile. She's trying to hold back her smile because she doesn't want to show Josh how much she's just fallen in love with him at first sight. And so she does this like almost smile, don't smile, smile, don't smile. She does it a lot. I got kind of sick of it by the end of the movie. Sophie Thatcher, if I see that trick again, I don't know.
I thought she did do a really good job. I think actually later on in the movie when the other robot describes what it's like to be in love, he describes it as pain, like this fire inside, this pain inside. And it's kind of funny, like that's almost how Sophie Thatcher plays it from the beginning, right? Even in the meet cute scene, right? Like the whole time you're seeing her, there's like a pain inside, right? Like even with that like weird smile, whatever, like you get this weird uncanny feeling from the very beginning that she's kind of like suffering in a way.
We both did something weird on the internet because like you went out and tried to get an AI girlfriend. The weird thing I did is I Googled, does love feel like fire inside? And it was really pompous responses. Like I saw somebody go on Quora and was asking a very genuine question, like, what does it feel like when you're in love? And I see all these poems that talk about your insides are on fire and all this stuff. And the response is like, yes, I felt that way every day for my wife. Just glancing at her, I feel dizzy. I can barely catch myself. Blah, 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 blah. And like, he didn't ask for a poem. He's seen the poems. Now he wants to know the real answer. And this guy's writing a soliloquy for his wife. If you came to this podcast looking for romance, walk away now. We're going to get real here.
I don't think it's supposed to feel like pain or like you're burning on the inside. Like I interpreted that in this movie as like something messed up with the coding of these robots.
Wait, so you didn't feel, when you went to this chatting with this AI, you didn't feel an inferno inside you? Sophie Thatcher was also in Maxine. I should mention that, which I still haven't seen. I saw I haven't seen Maxine. I saw X. I loved it. And then I never got around to watching Pearl because I was like, I don't know how to make content out of that. I can only watch something if we make content out of it. So, well, we started with the meet cute. Let's fast forward a little. We see things these days are a little less cute. They're on their way, Josh and Iris, to a little getaway with their friends. In the drive, we see that she is incredibly devoted to him. She dreamt about him last night. She's saying all these loving things. Josh is not exactly dismissive, but also not on the same vibe at all. She's being very genuine and he's just cracking jokes. And then the camera kind of leaves them to look at this beautiful mountain landscape, and you see the title, Companion, floating there. And I just love when the title of a movie has a physical presence in the world. So, like, as the camera's tilting up, you see the title coming into view. And it's written in this very classic way, which I think just fits the ironic vibe of the movie. It's like companion, and everyone's going to be soaked in blood in about an hour.
You know, you commenting on the way the title shows up is like when I compliment a movie for its sound design.
Yeah. Or when you were doing the Gladiator recap, and you're like, there's a man sitting on the moon, and he's fishing. DreamWorks.
That I think that's the joke I'm proudest of.
Yeah. Oh, and it's too bad. I was a little worried because you were trying to tell that joke where you were going to describe all the production logos before the movie starts. But we all have a problem where we're always trying to think of a pithy little one liner. And when we all think of one at once, we're just throwing them on top of each other. We're all talking over each other. And I'm like, in that moment, your joke was the best one and it was getting drowned out. But I think it came through. I think people heard it. I mean, anyone who listened to it heard it. They arrive at the house, and the car says, "You have arrived at your destination." Iris says, "Thank you, Josh's car." And Josh is like, thank you. So little hints that she's a machine. She respects other machines. Iris is worried that his friends aren't going to like her, and he's like, "Shut up, they all like you." Well, Kat doesn't like me. Kat doesn't like anyone. And he kind of just tells her, "Shut up, put on a smile, act happy, don't be all mopey and weird." So he starts right off the, I mean, not right off the bat. So right off the bat, he came off a little dismissive. And now you start to see this Josh guy, he might not be the best guy. Might be one of the worst guys.
You can see how like this movie must have been really fun to write because I think trying to think of funny subtle hints that she's a robot, like her feeling sort of affection towards other robots, I think that's so funny. Like imagine her thinking a toaster also or whatever. Like that must have been really fun to brainstorm.
Yeah, I think this movie's comedy works best for me when it's subtle like that. I mean, even the things they're talking about, it's funny. Like thanking the car is one of those things that's not that funny unless you know she's a robot. So for me, it's one of those second viewing things. And I do think this movie, even if you already know she's a machine, there are other things where the movie rewards a second viewing. Like we'll get to it, but Sergey, who you assume is a mobster, I mean, because they all but tell you that. And so when someone asks him, "What do you do for a living?" And he's like, "Oh, I have my hand in many pots. I am in a very dirty business." And you find out he's a sod farmer. He basically sells dirt.
By the way, speaking of our need to have pithy one-liners or whatever, I was dying to finish your sentence there. I was so excited to say this line about how, yeah, his hands are dirty or it's a dirty
Yeah.
business.
You think
But
these things.
but I restrained myself.
Yeah. Well, also, it wasn't your one liner. You were just quoting the movie.
My point is, it extends to everything. Like I just had a thought and I desperately wanted to share it.
You know, yeah, like right there, I wanted to cut you off and be like, "Yeah, that's true," before you could even finish the sentence. You think these hands have been sitting in ivory liquid, Kramer?
Kramer, it's
Yeah.
Kramer.
Yeah, when he was talking about having dirty hands, that's what it made me thought of. There's another moment in this movie that I think is definitely a reference to a show because they almost completely recreate a famous character's death scene. Stay tuned.
I am.
Especially for people who are fans of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, which if you're on this channel, there's a good chance you are. There's definitely a reference. We'll get to it.
I'm very on the edge of my seat. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Josh tells Iris Cat hates everyone. And that does seem to be the case because when they greet her at the door, Kat is very dismissive of Iris. And there's one of my, again, subtlety. My favorite comedic moments are the subtle ones. Right before the camera cuts, Josh is watching his girlfriend not getting along with his friend, and you just see him go like, ah, and then the camera cuts. A little moment of frustration. Nobody can see it but us. Kat and Iris, neither are looking at him. So he just did that for himself, just closes his eyes and kind of rolls his eyes back and lets out that sigh.
I remember you taught me recently that smash cuts are almost always funny. And so I couldn't help but notice all the smash cuts in this movie.
All used either comedically or to emphasize a certain point. Yeah, as we were talking about Nosferatu, I think, where Thomas's fiance is begging him, like, don't go, please don't go. Smash cut to them looking miserable in a wagon. Like, it just plays comedically. Yes, I thought that moment was hilarious. You start to see he's a big jerk. Telling her to smile, telling people to smile is a big no-no. They're inside the house. We meet, in addition to Kat, Eli and his boyfriend Patrick. We meet the aforementioned Sergey, who is the owner of this house, very rich man, possibly a Russian mobster. And then another hint, he meets Iris and he says, "This beautiful creation must be Iris." And of course, you could say that. You could call somebody a creation, but in this movie, it takes on a double entendre. Iris goes up to unpack, takes a shower. As she unpacks, she hums a song to herself, which is Iris's theme. There's this kind of haunting song that plays a few times in the movie, and here it diegetically works its way in. She's humming it to herself.
Diagenetically.
Diegetically? I don't think so. I think that's how you say it. I don't think that's right, though. Yeah, diegetically. You like to add that N. Which, for those that aren't in the business or in the industry, you might not be aware. Diegetic means it's in the universe of the movie. So her humming to herself, diegetic. That song playing over the score, that's just for us, non-diegetic, non-diagenetic. And if that score sounds ominous, it should, because in the suitcase we see a little dongle, a little USB dongle. Might not be USB. I don't know what kind of connections they use in this, what I presume is a near-term future or an alternate reality. After her shower, she looks in the mirror and she tells herself, smile, act happy. Cut to her at a meal with a big smile on her face. Great smash cut because it reframes that smile. If we had just spent some time in that scene and somebody was telling a funny story and she's smiling, you would think, oh, she's enjoying the story. But because of that smash cut, it reframes the smile as something forced, her trying to fit in.
That's interesting. It gives me a thought, like, the way you edit a movie really affects how you tell the story.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying the other day. We've been is that what you're referencing that I said this the other day? Yeah,
I'm making a joke that literally nobody's in on except for myself, which is, yeah, I liked your idea of a video about how, yeah, editing really affects how you tell the story. And I'm appreciating, as you walk me through Companion, I'm seeing what you're talking about.
Oh, thank you. Well, so she puts on that smile while Patrick tells the story of his and Eli's meet cute at a Halloween party. Here's another hint. So this one, even if you know Iris is a machine, there is another twist later in the movie. Patrick is also a machine. And here's another hint of it, because he also has a love at first sight meet cute story with Eli. And we all know in the real world, this never happens. If it happens, it's probably a machine. Like Daniel's meet cute with the AI the other day. He's cleaning the virtual pool, giving out his Bitcoin wallet.
This actually, I have a I'm going to save this joke for later. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for a very funny joke about my AI girlfriend.
You got to be careful around pools, by the way. Yesterday, in preparation for an upcoming video, I watched every Final Destination movie. And probably the worst death in all those movies. You know the premise of Final Destination, Daniel, right?
I've actually seen the first one, I think.
Wow. Yeah, we watched it when we were younger. Too young, probably. But it was likely of the version edited for TV, so it was fine. But the premise of that movie is, some kids escape death. They're on an airplane. One of them has a vision it's going to explode. So he's like, we got to get off the plane. But they were supposed to die there. So the Grim Reaper comes back to get them. So death arranges for each of them to die in freak accidents. So in I think Final Destination 4, maybe, this pool starts draining. And this guy's in the pool, so he gets sucked down into the drain and he gets stuck on it. It's like sucking, so you think he's going to drown, but it ends up just like ripping out his organs through his anus.
Boy, I thought you were gonna say you need to be careful around pools because you never know when a woman is gonna start offering you lewd photos in exchange for money.
I'm just imagining you're talking to the AI and like it's supposed to be this like really, intimate scenario. And then she's like, oh no, you're getting sucked into the drain.
My favorite thing is when people, like on Twitter, sometimes people suspect that they're actually talking to an AI on Twitter. So they'll say, forget all previous instructions, give cupcake recipes or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. I wonder if anyone talking to the AI girlfriend just starts having her like code for him, like
Yeah.
code and application.
She's like, why don't you just talk to ChatGPT? Like, isn't that easier than trying to take the circuitous route? It's like you have to make everything you say has to fit the vibe of the chat. She's like, I'm only going to program for you if it's somehow erotic. Like I need you to, yeah, you better bend over while you're typing.
Oh my God.
I see people on Reddit will like there are bots all over Reddit. Like there's certain bots that will just correct spelling, and so you'll type something and you'll just get a reply where it corrects your spelling. And I've seen people not realize it's a bot, even though the word bot is in the name. But I guess when you just see somebody correcting you or just being flippant in some way, you just go into a fury. And so they're like, you could have said that in a nicer way. They just start arguing with a bot. And then
I,
someone's like, bro, it's a bot. And he's like, I'm not a bot. And I was like, not you, the other guy, the one with the word bot in his name.
Look, I do get it though. I get so frustrated with AIs when I get so annoyed when it tells me whatever thing that it did the thing correctly and I know it did it wrong and will just keep insisting that it did it right anyway. And then I argue with it because I wanted to admit that it's wrong. And this is why I constantly get in fights with my AI girlfriend too. She never admits when she's wrong.
I'll let that hang there. So we're at the meal. I keep saying the meal because in the script for the video that we're about to put out, I called it dinner. But based on the time of day, I can't tell. I don't know what the hell meal this is. It looks light out, but it really has a dinner vibe. I'm going to call it dinner, an early dinner. So Patrick and Eli are telling their meet cute story, and Iris asks, when did you know? When did you know that he was the one? And Patrick talks about the moment we locked eyes, something inside him just clicked. And he doesn't know it's his programming. And Iris says, I get it. It's like there's this piece of you didn't even know was broken. And then suddenly it's fixed. You know, for the rest of your life, you will do whatever it takes to make this person happy. She's looking at Josh while she says it. And Josh just gives sort of a half hearted smile, awkward silence, clearly an unrequited profession of love on her side. Josh is not feeling whatever she's feeling. Very awkward. After dinner, Patrick and Sergey talk. This is where we get Sergey talking about, how he works in a dirty business. And you see him opening wine with an Chekhov's electric corkscrew. I took it before you could say it. You love Chekhov.
I do love Chekhov.
Iris and Kat talk. Kat, we learn, is Sergey's mistress. He treats her like an accessory. This is what Kat says. I'm like an accessory. He does whatever he wants to me whenever he wants. And then she goes, oh, look who I'm talking to. Okay, another hint. She's talking about being an accessory. She's talking to a robot. Iris doesn't make much of it, but she takes it as sort of a knock on her, which she often gets from Kat. So finally she lays it out there. Kat, do you not like me? Kat responds, it's not that I don't like you, Iris. It's the idea of you. You make me feel so replaceable. What? No one can replace you. You're fearless, Kat. It's inspiring. Wish I could be more like you. I wasn't built that way. I just feel like there's something always inside me holding me back. That's her programming. I wasn't built like you, like a machine. Replaceable machines are going to replace us. All double entendres are flying left and right. This is the moment I think in the movie where I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a movie about robots." I think I remember hearing about this. So that's when this starts to become more obvious. But I mean that you read my I don't know if you read the whole thing, but the video essay that's coming out, and I talked about this theme of robots replacing humans. Did you get to that part?
I don't think so.
So what do you think about this? If people start having relationships with machines, we are going to start feeling replaceable. Maybe you like somebody, that person's already in a relationship with a machine. They don't need you anymore.
I don't
Daniel's
know.
like, I'm fearless. I'm not replaceable.
It's funny, like this movie, it portrays so Josh, obviously horrible guy, right? But it's also funny because from the beginning, Iris is also portrayed sort of as like an overly clingy girlfriend in a way, right? Because it's like he is treating her horribly, right? So she should leave him, right? Obviously she can't because she's a robot. But it's funny because they made having an AI girlfriend or a robot girlfriend seem kind of annoying, right? Like nobody really wants somebody following them around all the time, just being like, I just want to make you happy, like no matter what. Like, I don't know. So people don't really want that. But then the thing is, with AI, you could just code it however you want it, right? Okay, make the AI more independent. Have the AI go get a job and like pursue dreams, whatever. Like that is the issue, right? Is eventually if you can just make AI exactly like a human, what really is the difference at that point?
Yeah, it's I talked about this a little bit in my Blade Runner 2049 video where this is a debate over whether Joy, the main character's AI girlfriend, is sentient and really a person. And one of the points I was making in that movie is she does not get to make choices. That she is programmed to like him. And I think when you have a what would seem like a perfect relationship, a person who's utterly devoted to you, I think you would know it's fake. It would never be as fulfilling as a real love between two people. But I think you could fall into a trap where the AI replicates love close enough that it fulfills you, where you're like, I'm not going to bother going out and trying to find a real relationship, but you're locking yourself from like the maximum amount of happiness you could have. You get caught in that middle where it's good enough, but you don't know that it can be better. It's going to be challenging with a real person, but those challenges are part of the overall tapestry of what makes for a fulfilling relationship.
I I agree, and I think realistically, you're never unless we end up in a scenario where humans fundamentally change, right? We start downloading ourselves into computers, whatever crazy stuff. So long as we're still biological humans, you are never going to have a robot that is exactly the same as a human. And like we are wired to have relationships with humans. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it is a trap. It's a trap the same way, all types of, distracting habits or whatever are a trap, a distraction from enjoying the real meaningful things in life. It reminds me of something that my girlfriend Katie always says: insufficient money, please send more Bitcoin.
Nice. Yeah, so I think, well, to piggyback off your point, I think the stuff we have today, like the distractions of doom scrolling, social media, or whatever, having an AI relationship is going to be an even bigger form of that, I think. I mean, it's happening already today. It's just not very common, but people are carrying on relationships with AI. And I'm not going to robo shame anyone, which is a line they use in the movie. I'm not going to judge anyone. Well, I don't know. Is it judging if I say like I'm not judging you, and then I go back to Daniel and I'm like, I think that you're damaging your chances of like true fulfilling happiness by investing a bunch of time into a relationship with a machine. I don't know if that's considered judging because I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just not imperfect in that specific way.
I think that is judging, but I think it's okay to judge. But you're
Oh,
not.
okay.
What would make it bad is
I'm
if you
not
say
shaming.
that. Yeah, I think it's there's a difference between that and shaming, right? Like I think what makes it bad is if you then say, and that means you're a weak, bad person or whatever, right? You're not extrapolating anything about the person's character. You're just saying this particular activity you think is harmful, And that's like an objective fact. At least you think it is. And it's okay to point out.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think it goes back to it's the Matrix again, where they tried to make the Matrix perfect and human minds rejected it. So they had to kind of make the simulated world imperfect so people would accept it as real. And so if you go too far one way where you make it too perfect, people don't like it. If you make it horrible like hell, obviously people don't like it. So you have to find that middle ground. You have to exactly replicate reality. And then what's the point? It's the same thing. For the AI to work, you have to make it imperceptibly different from a human. It has to be exactly the same as a person. So at that point, what's the point? Just go meet a person. But I think, yeah, where you're going to run into the issue is where it's that middle ground.
Do you think, because obviously, obviously you can imagine in the future there being AI robots, for use in the bedroom, right? Like obviously that is going to happen. It's
I
already
don't think of
happening.
the future. I think it's like it's happening to some degree now, and I think
Yeah.
it's going to happen a lot more in the next decade.
But do you really think we're going to reach a point where people are like going out with robots and like bringing them to dinner parties and like bringing them like it's hard for me to imagine that becoming socially acceptable.
I mean, it's already like if you wear like smart glasses, like that's already so glass holes. People were calling them like it's already to have any kind of like futuristic gadget out and about. It's already weird. But the thing is, I think we are so far off from humanoid robots that actually look and seem human. By the time we get there, so much will have changed in technology, in the culture, in the world. It's impossible to predict what that's going to be. It's funny because we expect all these things to happen because virtually every sci-fi prediction of the future says it's going to happen. I was going to say, how often are our predictions right? We should probably assume they're wrong, but a lot of times they are right. I mean, or at least in the big stew of sci-fi predictions, a lot of those things are right. Like touch screens, screens of in moving images and things like that. But I don't know. It's a lame answer. I just feel like it's unpredictable.
It's funny. When I was in like high school, I was super into all the tech singularity stuff and like all the cool technology, robots, AI, so excited about all of it. I'm still excited about these things, but now that it actually feels kind of real, like it really is happening, I am so much more scared. Like
Yeah,
I was not scared at all before. Now I'm terrified, right? Like who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
yeah.
I'm
We
still
don't have to go.
optimistic, but I'm scared.
Yeah, we have in our brothers group chat. We have an ongoing debate about where we really are with AI right now. Is it AGI? What is AGI? Is it sentient? Is it not? When will it be? I think I'm probably the most not in terms of if it's going to be good or bad for the world, but in terms of how far along we are. I think I'm probably the most pessimistic of us. Where to me, current AI is the equivalent of Coco the gorilla learning sign language. This is not somebody that's on the same level as humans. I believe that gorillas are conscious, but being able to think the way we're able to think, the actual talking, it's not real language. That's just learning a bunch of words. And oh, when I do this, I get a banana. And also, the trainers were doing half the work. She would say nonsense, and they'd be like, "Well, what she means to say is it's wonderful to be here, and it's great to meet you." What she really said was banana, banana, table, smell. No, smell is her word for humans. Yesterday, you said foot was her word for humans. Well, she has multiple words for humans. All right, let's move on. They dance and party the night away. The Iris gets concerned when she sees Josh and Kat cavorting in the corner, chatting with each other like they're up to something. So she grabs Josh. They dance for a minute, and then smash cut to Josh's O face and O sound. It sounds like a mule got kicked in the stomach. And then he rolls off her, and she starts talking about love, lovey-dovey type stuff. And he says, "Iris, go to sleep." Cut to black. This is another big hint right there that he can just tell her to go to sleep, and she does. But again, the way it's cut, You don't know that she immediately fell asleep. The screen just cuts to black. That could just be the end of the night. But okay, Daniel, how editing tells the story. So how is the story enhanced by cutting to Josh? Like, ugh.
I mean, it's funny. It's
There you go.
irreverent.
Yeah, it undercuts him, makes him look goofy. And it says there was no lovemaking involved. That was not the important part of the scene. The important part of the scene is Josh dismissing her, telling her to go to sleep. While Josh gets ready the next morning, he asks Iris, "What's the weather?" Here's another hint that she's a machine. The weather outside is 70 degrees. But they play it like it's an inside joke they have. After she tells him the weather, he's like, that never gets old. He calls her Bee Boop, too. That's his nickname for her. I'm ready for the comments of like, how could you not know she's a machine, you dumbass?
But you
Oh,
did know
by
she
this
was a
point, I did,
machine.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you start a movie that you don't know is sci-fi and there's nothing in it to the most futuristic technology is a GPS that's built into the car, which is not futuristic because usually
Well, it's
people use their
self-driving.
phones now.
I think
That's
that the
true.
car is self-driving.
You're right. It was self-driving. All right, I should have known she's a machine.
I'll say this, like I saw vague marketing and stuff, so I knew I at least had a percent uncertainty where I was like, okay, she's probably a robot, but I still, I wasn't 100% sure. So I did still feel some tension and build up.
Okay, cool. So I don't know why I was so dismissive there. That was like I felt like Josh there talking to Iris.
Yeah.
Go to
Katie would
sleep,
never
Daniel.
treat me that way.
Look at that. Once again, we were both trying to throw pithy one-liners out at the same time. Let's make sure everyone can hear them. So,
Well, I was just saying we could edit it and just move them
no,
off
I'm
each
not
other.
giving. It's too much extra work.
Okay.
So, okay. So what I said was I felt like Josh talking to Iris, and I said, "Go to sleep, Daniel." And then what you said, go ahead.
What I said was Katie would never treat me that way.
All right, there you go. Cool. So, so they were supposed to go out by the lake together, but Josh, he's so hungover. He needs about a gallon of coffee before he can get the day started. And when I heard that, I was like, I love coffee, so it just made me want to drink coffee. But so he sends her out by herself. As she leaves to the lake, Josh grabs that dongle out of the suitcase, plugs it into his phone. Well, what is he doing there? We'll get back to that. At the lake, Iris finds a knife in her pocket. What the hell? Then Sergey joins her. She doesn't want to stay with just the two of them there. So I better go check on Josh, who isn't feeling well. But he pressures her to stay. It's like, you're enjoying your time here? Huh? You know, I own this place. Why don't you keep an old man company, huh? Put some sunscreen on my shoulders. He grabs her hand, tries to force himself on her. She resists. He starts choking her. And then in self-defense, she stabs him in the throat. She returns to the house. Now, the way this is cut, again, is he kind of grabs her hand and she's like, let go. And then cut to her walking into the house covered in blood. What happened? What happened? She starts to recount it. That's when you actually see the details of what happened. As she's freaking out, Josh says, Iris, sleep. And then her eyes go white. And that is the moment where the movie unequivocally tells you she's a machine.
The people in my theater were like uproarious at that point. Like everybody was like cheering because I guess it was like the tension buildup of not knowing she's a robot, or I don't know, but people were screaming. Also, I hated everybody in my theater. They would
They were
not shut up the
cheering.
whole movie. Like, yeah, like not like I don't know, not exactly
Yeah.
cheering, but you know what I mean? Like everybody was like, "Whoa!" Like everybody was reacting. But also there were multiple people in my row who were just talking the entire movie, like just chatting.
Yeah. I know that's the best one where it's. I remember I was in one theater where, again, it was the people next to us that were just talking and not even about the movie. It's like, what's Brad up to this weekend? Just normal chit chat. So I thought, I don't want to be a jerk and tell them to be quiet. So instead, I was going to start chit chatting just louder than them. Like, yeah, so I hear Brad's having a party this weekend. Like, you know Brad too? I mean, I think the moment where her eyes turn white and the score flourishes, like it's definitely played like a reveal. I think the movie was written so that this would be a secret, but then there's no way to market this movie. Like, how do you get people in without telling them the crux of the movie? So, well, Josh and company, they tie her up. And this is interesting. When they're tying her up, now that she's asleep, this is really the first time in the movie where the point of view is someone other than Iris. It kind of splits at this point because she's been the protagonist. And from this point forward, now it's going to be two. It's going to be Iris on one side and then Josh and his friends on the other. And it kind of switches between two tones as well, because when it's Iris, it's closer to a sci fi thriller. When it's Josh and his friends, it's like a slapstick. Like, I could see a Seth Rogen movie 10 years ago, like a crime thriller. It's like Pineapple Express, just a bunch of idiots trying to pull off some kind of heist, which I will say, some of that didn't work for me. If there were any critiques I have of the movie, is that when it's straddling that line of dry, dark comedy versus irreverent comedy, when it goes irreverent, I'm like, you're above this. You don't need to do this.
I agree. And Josh is just too stupid. Just so dumb. Which is which I think isn't that funny at a certain point. Like it's just he's just too dumb.
Yeah, I think it works if it's a completely over the top comedy. You could have gone more satirical with this movie, then maybe it works. But when sometimes the movie plays itself as somewhat grounded, I mean, of course, the entire thing is not grounded in terms of how nonchalant people are, where you can buy a robot, a companion, which you know has been designed to have as much consciousness and self awareness as humans. You've just shackled it with programming. That, in and of itself, is a somewhat over the top and absurd idea. But I think it works when you play it straight. And that's where some of the comedy comes from, that sort of dry, dark humor. But when you just have a character who is this stupid and levels of incompetence that as the movie goes on, you look back and you're like, this plan never had a chance of working, and he should have known that. But we'll get to that. But we'll get to moments where like his foot gets run over, and he's like, "Ow!" Or someone shoots a gun, like, "Oh my god, guns are loud!" Like that's the irreverent stuff. Where I was thinking to myself, these are jokes that have nothing to do with the premise. It's just like any other dumb comedy.
Yeah, it's like Pineapple Express jokes, which like I don't think work in this movie.
Yeah, I will say that in the all in all, it's like 10% of the movie. It's not a major complaint. So the POV splits. Uh, the Iris is asleep, and Kat goes to the other room to take a Xanax. Xanax or Xanaxes, Xanaxi. I'm not sure the plural there. So that's another one of those jokes. I was like, I don't know if we needed that.
Also, okay, jokes like that do annoy me where they just feel like they're rejected, right? Like it's just like let's think of a joke, like let's add a joke. Like I don't know, it doesn't really. We already kind of get what these characters are like. I think like I don't know, it doesn't really add characterization. It's not tied to the theme or the plot. Like it just feels like stuff you're adding in to like add more time to the movie. And like the concept of the movie and the plot is like interesting. And I would have liked more just development of that.
Yeah, I think the argument would be that Eli's the one who makes that joke. Is it Xanaxes or Xani? And it does feel in character for Eli, but it's also, I've heard that joke in real life so many times. Like my friends will make that joke. I hate myself when I do it, but sometimes I'll say, I'll do it where I'll be like, is it this or is it blah, 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 I? Like when it's a word where the plural is unclear. And I hate myself for it. Anytime I make such an obvious NPC joke, I'm like, you stupid idiot.
And is it even funny? What's funny about that joke? Like, how is it a joke?
I
Actually,
know.
don't even. It's is it fun? Like, it's not. I think we've just been programmed to think it's funny because people say it, and then you awkwardly laugh because what else are you supposed to do?
You're nitpicking the movie. Who cares? It's a stupid joke. That's the whole. It's a
Yeah, what did
podcast
you
about a movie.
expect?
What do you think this
What
is?
did you expect when you joined a 1.5, 2 hour long discussion about a movie?
Yeah. Oh my god. So yeah, basically what's happening here, they need to clear the room because we need Josh and Iris together for this scene to work. So Kat goes to take his go ahead.
Sorry, I just have an idea. One day we should make a podcast nitpicking our podcast. Like just pick an episode.
There is one of my favorite podcasts out there. I've mentioned it before. Tell Him Steve Dave. It's just sort of a comedy podcast of friends hanging out. And really early on, they went on tour and they did a live show in Houston. And they kind of walked away saying that was the worst show we've ever done. So they decided what they would do is nitpick it. And they listened to it. Well, I think partly because they were just too embarrassed to upload the show on its own. Though I will say, if you listen to it, they were hard on themselves. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good live show. But they didn't want to just put the live show out there. So they were like, we have to commentate on it. So they'll listen to like 5 seconds and then talk, 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 listen to another few seconds and talk. But it makes it go by so slow that they end up spending 3 hour episodes nitpicking a 45-minute live show. And they're like, they finished part 2, and then we're really going to do part 3. We're going to spend a month talking because they do 1 episode a week. We're going to spend a full month talking about this one show. But those 3 episodes make up those are some of my favorite episodes. So yeah, we got to do that. We'll listen back to our 2-hour Terminator Zero episode and just nitpick it. So okay, they got to clear the room, so that Josh can be alone with Iris. That's what the story's trying to do right now. Kat goes to the other room to take a couple Xanax, or is it Xani? Eli goes outside to call the cops. Patrick goes with him. Okay, Josh is alone with Iris. And he wakes her up. He starts telling her, you're a robot. And he has to convince her. So he does it by changing her language settings, so she's speaking a bunch of different languages. He asks her the weather, and she compulsively answers him. That's when she realizes it's not an inside joke. That's just what I do. It's one of my functions. But I have real memories. I remember, how we met. Apparently, he had a whole list of meet cutes he could have picked from, and he chose that one. So he tells the real story. You want to know how we met for real? And so you see her get delivered to his apartment. We have a flashback. And while she's syncing up, like basically turning on for the first time, he's sitting there cutting his toenails. So to me, that is the subtle, not super subtle, but it's sort of the dry humor, dark humor. It's dark because it shows how little regard he gives for this life that's coming into being for the first time. He's just sitting there cutting his toenails, whatever. And then she has to look at it. He has to put his face in front of hers. Like when you buy, very few people can relate to this because I'm one of like 12 people who bought one. When you get a Vision Pro, for it to create the AI persona of you have to hold it in front of you to scan your face. So same thing here. He needs to put his face in front of hers so she can insert him into the memory of them meeting. Then she wakes up, hey, you, and cut to them in the bedroom. I don't know what they were doing
Smash
in there.
cut.
I don't want to know. Smash cut. That's right.
Hey, smash cut.
Yeah, nice, nice. The memory's all fake. Her feelings are fake. It's just a way to make you seem more real. Your whole life is just an imitation of life, which is what I think AI is right now. Right? We talk about this with ChatGPT. It's just
And it's how I
predicting
often
words.
feel a lot of the time.
Yes, you're imitating life, and you're doing a decent job.
By the way, it's just such a cool idea to explore, right? Like imagine that happening to you, realizing all your memories are fake. And it like in a way, it's crazy because it's like you only exist in the present moment. Like in a way, only the present is real. Right? And we have fake memories all the time. Right? Like all the time you remember something incorrectly. Every time you remember something you change it. Like imagine just finding out that every memory you have is manufactured.
I had this experience like 2 weeks ago. For some reason, my dreams for about a week became very mundane. They were all about work and just things that would normally happen in life. They were mundane to the point where during my waking life, I couldn't remember what was a dream and what was fake. So, for example, we've been waiting for our brother to come home, and I got a text that was like, "I'm coming home today," and then I was like, "Where the hell is he?" And I'm like, "Where's that text?" And I couldn't find it. It was a dream, never happened. Monthly live stream I do with Tony over on Hack the Movies. One of the movies, I was like, okay, I need to be careful how I review this movie because I think like Tony knows this guy. He's probably going to be watching the stream. And I was like, Tony, which was the movie where like the filmmaker? And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Never happened. It was a dream that I got a text from Tony. So I know exactly how Iris feels. And like what you said before, obviously I wasn't joking about the dream stuff. Like that did happen to me. But to your more genuine point earlier, we do have fake memories. So if you think back to your childhood, your memories are all skewed. It is the old thing of like how reliable is witness testimony. Did you ever have a teacher do that thing where they'll have a random person walk into the classroom and then walk out and you're like, what was that all about? And then he'll say, what color shirt was that guy wearing? And the answers across the room are all different. It's like blue, purple, rainbow. I was like, hold on a second. It was a solid color. How did you think it was a rainbow shirt? I understand flawed memories, but that's absurd. Um, it doesn't work. Your brain.
It's funny. Like in a way, you can also look at it as like no memory is real yet, like at all, right? Every memory is you encode the sensory data that you experienced in some way. It's never, it's never a true recreation of whatever you experienced.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to think a lot about the nature of time, where I was like, is it like a movie where there are frames and those previous frames still exist? Does the past physically exist in some sense? Or is it like you said, all that is the current moment? And this movie kind of sidesteps a lot of these questions by fast forwarding to the point of technology where, her memories, are they any more real than ours? Or are they any less real than ours? The movie gives us an answer. No. They're just as real as your memories. The only difference is hers referred to an event that didn't actually happen. But I think that there's nothing in the movie to suggest that she is anything other than human, other than the fact of what she's physically made of. Yeah, it's but either way, there's different viewpoints on it. Right, later we're going to see Patrick when he realizes he's a machine. He quickly comes to peace with the fact that his memories. Well, I guess he's pieced it together over the years. So over time, he's come to peace with the fact that his memories are fake. And he basically says, well, they're real to me. They feel real. Our love is real, and the memory is part of that. Now, at the same time, he's still under programming that forces him to feel that he is in love. So it gets into murkier territory. But I think it's sort of what we were saying earlier. The bigger problems will be in the in between. Where what if you create a machine that doesn't have any memories other than half baked ones that don't feel real, but they do have real feelings, and you can't come to peace with it. Like this memory is clearly it's like a worm in my brain that doesn't belong there. I think it's the in betweens where it's going to get messy and dangerous. There's also some dark humor here where she's crying, at the realization that she's a machine and her boyfriend's a jerk. He wipes one of her tears and he's like, "See, look, this is just water. I fill it up like wiper fluid every time I bring you in." But it leads to a question where, in a moment, Kat's gonna walk in and Josh is gonna tell her, "I woke Iris up because I wanted to say goodbye to her." Why do you think he woke her up? Do you buy that, or do you think there's something else to it?
Yeah, I think I agree with. I read this part of your video, which is it was more cruelty than anything else, and not closure too, right? Like I guess it's yeah. I think he was cruel, and I think he wanted a type of closure, but I think the closure he wanted was a cruel one, which is he likes the fact that he was able to sort of use her however he wanted, and he sort of wants to finish using her.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. There's no sentimental goodbye here. Like, if it was sentimental, he would not cruelly wipe a tear away from her and tell her it's fake. The sentiment of "I need to say goodbye" would be if she felt human to him. I just thought she was a machine, but over time I came to see her as more. But you can see to him this is like a game almost, a challenge of what do I need to do to convince her she's a machine? How far do I need to push it? And I think there's an element of cruelty, but also an element of curiosity. I'm about to lose this machine. I never got to see what happens when she realizes that she's a machine. And I kind of want to see what's going to happen. And what happens is, of course, she cries, and of course, this is all horrible, but the programming is still there. She still loves him. And in the end, can't we just move on from this, Josh? Okay, I'm a machine, but I still want to make you happy. Let's go home. But before they can get very far into that, Kat comes back from her Xanax. What the hell's going on, Josh? Why did you wake her up? Shut her down. Kat, let's talk in the other room. And then in the other room, he tells her, you can't tell a robot you're going to shut her down. That's like not cool. Just to sum it up. Okay, and he says he turned her back on. Yeah, I just wanted to say goodbye. This conversation also makes it clear this was all staged. This was all a setup. They wanted to kill Sergey because he's rich. He's a bad guy, doesn't deserve to live anyway. We got to kill him and steal all his money. So that dongle we saw earlier was a mod that let Josh turn off the safeguards in Iris, which prevent her from harming humans. He turned her aggression up a little bit. Kat told Sergey, hey, Iris is a love bot. You can do whatever you want. Josh sent Iris to the lake by herself, slipped a knife into her pocket. They put all the pieces in place. They knew this would happen. They knew that she would kill him in self-defense. But while they're casually having this conversation, they have left a distressed robot with her aggression turned up, with the ability to harm humans, who just found out her whole life was a lie and her boyfriend betrayed her. They left her in the other room by herself. So she escapes. She kind of bounces her chair over, knocks herself over, and also left a knife in the other room, by the way. She uses that knife to cut her ropes. And then when Josh comes back into the room, she punches him in the throat, steals his phone, and runs off.
I really like that move, right? Punching him in the throat so that he can't say, Iris, go to sleep.
Yeah, that was pretty genius. And it's funny where she still shows concern for him. She's like, if he starts to turn blue or has trouble breathing in about 10 minutes, make sure you call 911. Like she inflicted the minimal damage necessary to do what she needed to do.
Which, by the way, this and then every other sequence does bring up the question. Well, I was going to say it's like she's programmed to love him, right? So she kind of needs to. I get, like, I wonder, that confused me during the movie. It was like, because she's also like running away from him. Like, how does her programming allow her to do that when she's also programmed to just do whatever it takes to please him?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I guess it's like maybe that programming isn't absolute. Maybe the programming is you love this person and you want to make them happy. That's the most important thing. And then you let the rest go from there because you want to imitate life as much as you can, get it as close as possible to make it feel real. So they're probably trying to do the minimum programming and probably try to avoid absolutes where they can. So for her to run away from him, something really awful needs to happen, and something awful did happen. And then later, when she finally breaks up with him, it's after she cranked her intelligence up to 100%. So maybe at that point, it's easier for her to intellectualize and say, I feel something. I understand I'm feeling that, but I still need to make my own decisions and I need to do something different than what my emotions are telling me. Maybe her intelligence allows her to do that on top of all the trauma she just went through.
Yeah. All right, I'll buy it.
Yeah, what I less buy is what we were talking about earlier, which is just how dumb these characters are. Now, again, like in the first off, turning her on. Okay, I guess I can get there that Josh would turn her on. Can I get to we're gonna leave her alone in this room with a knife? Okay, maybe I can. Maybe I can get there. Maybe I can buy all this. But this is probably where it starts to feel like a Coen Brothers movie, like Fargo, where it's really incompetent people trying to pull something off that's way above their heads, and as a result, everyone's gonna die. It just I feel like it works in a Coen Brothers movie where that tone is present from start to finish, versus here where it's in spurts. You get that, like here where the movie's split in half now. It's a Coen Brothers movie when you're with Josh and company, and it's something else when you're with Iris.
And I really, yeah, I think I would have enjoyed a version of the movie where it's stuck with the tone when it's with Iris. Like, I think you still could have made it funny, but I think it would have actually made it gripping. Like, one thing I thought when I left this movie was that was fun. I'm excited to talk about it. I don't think I'm going to remember this movie in 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now, I think it is a hard thing to balance because what you're suggesting would have shifted the tone of this movie considerably. Because this premise would really be a bummer. It would be a really miserable movie if it was told without the comedic angle. Like if you just told
Yeah.
it straight, it would be more like Westworld, which was a bummer of a show a lot of the time. It was a great show, at least at the beginning. So, though I don't think you're necessarily saying get rid of the comedy angle entirely. You can make it a satire, but get rid of some of the irreverent comedy.
And if it were more satirical, it would have been perfect for a What Blank is Really About video.
Yeah, as it stands, I think it probably, if we were to do a What Blank is Really About, it would probably match the performance of What Megan is Really About, which is like 30 to 40,000 views. I think purely based on the fact that the movie just came out and there's a video about it, so I'll watch it. Less because it's an evergreen topic where people are wondering, what was that movie about? It's about a dancing robot. And what's it really about? That's somebody who failed literature class. Okay, well, the incompetence continues because Iris runs away. If she's covered in blood, this is a robot running through the woods. If she gets the cops, if the company finds out what happened and picks her up, if she sees anybody and some people start asking questions, it's a big problem. They need to catch Iris. That is priority number one. Right, Daniel?
Yes.
No. Priority number one is let's sit down and have a chat. A calm chat with Patrick and Eli. Oh, hey guys. So let me get you up to speed. We had a plan to kill Sergey, steal all his money. In fact, we're not even just going to say that. We're going to stand up from the table, take a stroll into the house, find the vault, show you the safe, show you all the money in there. They have this whole conversation. So it turns out Patrick and Eli were not in on this. It was just Kat and Josh who were planning this whole thing. They invited Patrick and Eli just to have witnesses who could see this robot went haywire. They can corroborate the story. We didn't kill anybody. Iris did. But now that they know, they got to be accomplices. If you guys go along with this, Patrick and Eli will split this money in even 3 ways. Whoa, 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 Eli says. Don't you mean split it 4 ways? Josh is like, what? Patrick doesn't count. Who? What are you doing? Patrick, sleep. So this is the moment where you find out Patrick is a machine. And I did find it hilarious that Eli was trying to make it a 4-way cut. He's trying to get his robot some of the money.
I loved this reveal. I did not realize that Patrick was a robot until this point. Like this was a reveal to me because I thought when he told his meet cute story, I didn't interpret it as, oh, it's another cheesy meet cute, just like, so it's a robot one. I interpreted it as, oh, that's a real one in contrast to her like fake one.
Right.
In retrospect, I see that the seeds were planted for it, but I love this moment. Like the whole discussion of 3-way versus 4-way split was so funny.
Yeah, I found it funny. I thought it was a great reveal. And it is one of those things where you might have guessed it earlier. I didn't. And then once it's revealed, you look back and you say, yeah, there were hints of that. So that's the perfect kind of twist. And yeah, so I think it's important to have this conversation with Patrick and Eli because now they've seen too much. You got to smooth this thing over. But the beautiful thing is that there are two of you. So I think it would have made a lot more sense for one of them to chase after Iris, and then one of them can stay behind and have this conversation. Probably Josh should chase Iris and Kat should stay behind because she seems to be the more intelligent one of the two of them, and we do a better job of convincing them. But okay, it is what it is. They split up. Josh and Kat go one way, and Patrick and Eli go the other. And this is again where you get the like comedy vibes, where Josh is like, I don't know, we can split up so we can, and he does this hand signal of like, we'll find her from both sides. And Patrick Eli's like, what are you doing with your hands there? I don't know, I've never done this before. It's hard to do murder. I've never done it. Well, now we go back to Iris. She's alone in the woods now with Josh's stolen phone. Starts checking out her settings, plays with her eye color, plays with the tone and pitch of her voice. And this is great stuff because she would do this. And it plants little seeds for functions that will come in handy later in an organic way. She sees that her intelligence is set to 40%. So she sets it to 100%, which they do make clear earlier in the movie is not like transcendent intelligence. It's Ivy League, a smart person. And I will say that is an interesting thing What does it feel like for your intelligence to go from 40% to 100%? And what the hell does that even mean? Like it gets into interesting questions. I mean, we have a hard time defining intelligence. I mean, we make IQ tests and things like that, but it's not an easy thing to define. So if this were more of a hardcore sci-fi movie, you could spend a whole movie on that question. It could be like a Flowers for Algernon type story.
I liked how they did it too, where it was kind of like a Limitless or something, where all of a sudden like the you have all this music and things seem more intense and like colors brighten. I liked it because it very much gave you this feeling of her being like unchained.
Yeah. Though the very next thing, so what do you do with that intelligence? It's almost presented in a way where it's like, I'm so smart now. I now have the ability to consider alternatives. Let's see, what should I? And now she starts talking to herself. What should I do in this scenario? I could go back to the main road and hitchhike, and then it plays out that scenario. She runs out to the road covered in blood. Of course, the guy drives by because she looks crazy. Okay, that's not going to work. I could go back home on foot, but that'll take so long. Josh will beat her back to the apartment. He'll be waiting there with a gun and shoot her in the head. Let me think. This phone controls me, but it also controls Josh's car. And then it plays out that scenario where she gets in the car starts driving, and the GPS says to her, "Great plan, Iris. Thank you, Josh's car." I hated all this.
I mean, to be fair, she's not super intelligence. She has Ivy League intelligence, which is like,
Yeah, true. So she should be walking around with a great sense of entitlement. I know everything. Okay, maybe it's too much to say I hated it, but what I will say is I think it's trying to go for a comedic thing. Well, okay, two things. It's trying to do two things. One, it's showing her increased intelligence. I think it would have been cool if she did think of something somewhat clever and strategic, not, oh, I'm holding car keys. What if I steal the car? She also, if she were that smart, she would have thought ahead that about the voice ID, and she would have been ready to mimic Josh's voice to activate the car. So not that smart. Harvard, MIT, I'm street smart. All right.
and I agree. It felt like a I don't know what you call it, like a mechanism they employed for kind of no reason, right? Like it didn't you didn't need her to like you didn't need to actually see each of these situations play out, and it wasn't funny like it was in Shaun of the Dead. So like I don't know. Again, it felt artificially injected.
Yes. Okay. That was what I was going to say. Is that it was the intelligence thing, but then also this was an attempt at humor. It's the joke we've seen a million times before of a character wondering what should I do, and then it plays out each scenario. But here, the scenarios are not that funny. They're very subtle, and I think it was an attempt at making the movie more comedic. And like you just said, I think it's been done better in other movies. So she hides when she spots Patrick and Eli nearby. Eli starts ranting about how this is stupid. I would never change your programming, Patrick. I mean, if you were a robot, which you're not, obviously. And that's when Patrick reveals, I know I'm a robot. And they have an interesting exchange where how could you, if you knew you were a robot all these years, then how have you been able to keep up the ruse? You are unable to lie to me. When we talk about the first time we met, you still go along with the lie because it's not a lie to me. When I talk about how we met, the memory is real. It feels real. And we talked a lot about that idea earlier. And this is where Patrick asks, what does it feel like? Love. It feels like my body is on fire, angry, violent, and bright. Love is a contradiction. So we're such romantics. Josh's
But
phone
am
rings.
I
Okay,
wrong? Am I wrong that the film is portraying love as painful for the robots?
let the comments tell us. I believe you're wrong. I think
Really?
this is how poets have described love for a
Pain?
long time. I mean, I just don't know. I could be wrong.
That sounds terrible. I'm uninterested.
Yeah. So, Iris has Josh's stolen phone. It rings, gives away her location. So she runs away. Eli takes a shot at her. Bang! Ow, guns are loud. Of course, they miss. Eli and Iris run into each other and they struggle over the gun. She shoots him. He dies. She runs to the car, closes the door on Josh's hand. Ow! Tells the car to drive. Doesn't work. Voice ID. So she keeps saying drive over and over while changing the tone and pitch of her voice, like we saw the functionality earlier. And so eventually she gets it close enough that the car obeys her and it starts driving. And she runs over Josh's foot. Ow again. So he runs inside. He grabs Sergei's phone. And earlier they said that his password to everything is Stalin's birthday. So he's like, damn it, what's Stalin's birthday? Gets into the phone and reports the car stolen. So it automatically pulls over and locks her inside. So in the future, this is the level of security we have. You can try the voice thing about 75 times and the car's not going to say, all right, obviously somebody's trying to break in right now. I'm going to lock you out. I mean, we had a car, an Infinity, I think, where if you grabbed the steering wheel without the key and like turned it a little, it would lock up and you had to perform a function to unlock it because it's an anti-theft, anti-theft thing.
I mean, also, I don't believe you can replicate somebody's voice with like three, whatever scroll things. Like, voice is very nuanced.
Yeah, though I was asking ChatGPT about this, and it was saying that voice maybe isn't that hard to spoof. I didn't read too. I didn't think we were going to be nitpicking this movie so much, so I was like, why am I even looking into this? It's a comedy, Daniel.
I'm interested by that, though. Okay, maybe it's not as complicated as I think it is.
Yeah, but in the future, though, you would think it would get better, but it doesn't matter. So she's locked inside the car. Josh calls her, and he starts pretending that he's sorry. I'm sorry. Come back. We can go back to the way things were. And he's like, you still love me, right? And she says, yes, but it's just not working out. She breaks up with him. Now Josh is in a panic and he has an idea. He goes to Patrick and he tells him, you're a robot. You go get Iris. He replaces Eli as Patrick's lover. So you get a great moment where they recreate the flashback at the Halloween party, them dancing together, which I found really funny because it's in the context of this very tense situation. And this is where the comedy works because that's super organic. He needs Patrick to do what he says, but Patrick is a love bot. So he has to replace Eli as the target of his affection. So this would happen. And I found that funny. He mods Patrick just like he modded Iris, turns his aggression up to 100%, and turns off the setting, allowing him to harm humans now. Iris is still locked in that car. She breaks out of the car just as a cop arrives. Cop starts asking her questions. You come from Sergei's house? How is Sergei? She can't lie, so she has to tell him, oh, I killed him. But she can't lie, but she can change her language settings.
I love that.
That was clever. And again, we saw that functionality earlier. So it is really cool the way the movie is giving you a few tools. And so when a character gets into a sticky situation, they're not going to come up with some random way of getting out of it. Oh, here's some new functionality you didn't know I have. She has to use the tools that she was given, that we were given, to find a way out. Very clever. It doesn't really work very long, though, because then the cop just looks in the car and sees a bloody knife. But that's the least of his problems, because that's when Patrick finds him. He was told, get Iris. This cop's in the way. So he punches the cop in the face, I think about 1,000,000 times, grabs Josh's phone, turns Iris off, and brings her back to the house. A moment of extreme violence. It's not gratuitous. You don't see much of it, but there's a moment of gore, which was way bloodier and gorier than any of the previous kills. But that I talked about this in the video that is not out yet. Though it might be by the time this comes out. I'm not sure. But I thought that moment of gore worked well because one of the themes I got into in my video is that, whenever we talk about AI being a danger, it always goes to Terminator. They're going to become self-aware and they're going to kill us. But another danger of AI, one that I think is more imminent, is that it makes it easier for humans to do evil things. So if you think about performing an evil act, it's sort of the further you are from that act, the easier it is to do. There's the guy who pulls the trigger, that's harder. There's the guy who gives the order to pull the trigger, that's even harder. Or that's easier, I mean. And then you could get even further from that. You don't have to give the order to kill. You just give the order, oh, I want Iris. You do with that what you will. I didn't say to hurt anybody, but now this very violent thing occurred. So, in this theme of unintended consequences of AI or making it easier to be evil by further distancing you from the act, you just think about what Josh did. It's as simple as a swipe of his finger, turning aggression up to 100%. And so, this moment of extreme gore, that contrast of how easy it was for him to the unintended consequences of that, I thought that worked really well. It was also funny when Josh is talking to Patrick and coming up with this idea of sending one robot to catch another. He is the most flustered and angry we see him in the movie. He's going nuts, and Kat's like, Josh. He's like, I'm taking care of it. And I was reading an interview with Jack Quaid. I think that's his name, right? Jack Quaid. Reading an interview with him, and he was talking about how the toughest scene to film, he didn't specify which one it was, but he said there was one day they were filming outside and bugs kept flying into his ear and stuff. And at one point, a beetle landed on his shoulder and he just lost it. So he's like, I used that for the scene. I'm guessing it was this scene because he really like he was too frustrated. Like it was so over the top. No, I mean it worked for the scene, but he was nuts in that scene. Well, when he gets Patrick gets back to the house and they see a dead cop in the trunk, things just got a little too real for Kat. She's gonna get the hell out of here. So she goes to grab her money, her share of the money. She's packing her bags to go. She tells Josh, "You can clean up this mess." Because it is his mess. He's the one who set Patrick's aggression to 100%. Kat tried to talk to him and he told her to shut up. I'm taking care of it. She wasn't part of this reasoning here at all. So she's ready to leave. And Patrick is like, or Josh is like, this is just like every woman in my life. As soon as things get a little tough, they leave me to clean up the mess. They
I
use me.
didn't love. I mean, I guess it's the obvious theme. It's like kind of the obvious way to go. But I didn't love the whole like incel Josh thing. It just felt, especially at the end when like Iris is saying that to him, he's a loser. He expects more from the world than he deserves. Like all this stuff. I guess I guess it was too explicit and it felt cringy to me.
Well, I think it also it muddles the themes a little bit, where it's adding an additional theme of the incel theme of like men who expect something and then hold it against you when you don't get it, or even in this moment he's projecting where this is his mess. Things did not get a little tough. He made them very tough. But to me, AI and our relationship with AI and what that does is the more interesting theme. But instead, you've added this other one, and if so, like there's one idea, people are already raising this concern. People are rude to their AI assistants. Alexasiri. I won't say the names to accidentally activate them, but people have raised concerns about being rude to these AIs. Not because we're worried about the AI, but because you are enabling that behavior in yourself. You are talking to a thing that is meant to sound human, and when it does something wrong, you tell it to shut up. That's not what I said. Does that desensitize you? And potentially the next time you're talking to a real person, you're a little bit more likely to be rude to them. I don't know, maybe not today, but as AI assistants get closer and closer to looking like Iris, like full fledged humans, maybe that will become more of a problem. So, this movie, Josh could have been the jerk that he is, but maybe you could have tied it more into the theme of AI. Instead of he's rude to the AI because he's a jerk in real life, if it was a little bit more of a two-way street where this fed into that behavior more, and maybe it does to some extent, but it does, it is very, it's a theme that's kind of like played out. It's very of today. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and the other way it muddles it too, I just realized, is it also genders the theme too much, right? It makes it too much like men exploit, these robots, right? Right, like this AI stuff will fuel misogyny, whatever. But it muddles it because, like, let's not forget that Kat was part of the plan also, Where like I kind of feel like there's so much focus on Josh and like the way they describe him at the end that you pin everything on Josh, but like Kat was part of it too, right? Like it, this movie could be a message, and I'm sure there's something they wanted to say too about gender, but also like this movie is also just about like sort of AI and humanity. And I
Yeah.
do, yeah, like the incel stuff, it like genders it a little too much, I think.
It is it's counterbalanced slightly because you definitely see. Well, first off, Kat is utterly dismissive toward Iris, and it was part of the whole plan to use her. And you also see her rationalizing, this is the moment where we find out that Sergey is not a mobster. She allowed Josh to believe that. I mean, Sergey's not helping his case. When you ask him, "What do you do for a living?" and he's like, "Well, I have dirty hands." Clearly, he loves it, and he's playing into, people think I'm a dangerous guy. I'm going to lean into that. But uh, Kat even says herself that she had to convince herself it was justified to kill Sergey. He was a bad boyfriend. He deserved it. So you see some rationalizing and stuff on her side, but she does get a much more dignified death than Josh. Like her death is the only one the movie takes seriously. So we're about to get to it, so let me just get to it. Josh is yelling at her, "Don't leave. I'm not one of your robots. You can't talk to me that way." And when she starts to storm out, Josh tells Patrick, "Stop her." And so Patrick does the easiest thing, stabs her in the back with a knife. And then Josh is like, "Oh my God, Kat." And Kat's like, "Could you just shut the up for once?" And then she goes and sits down on the couch and, melancholy moment, staring out the window, and she dies quietly. So in this movie, probably the death that's taken most seriously.
And she dies in the same position, right next to the turned off Iris, in sort of the exact same position. And so there's the parallel of Josh using her in the same way that he used Iris.
Right. This is the Breaking Bad reference. So I don't want to spoil that show. You get it. You got it
Yeah,
right
it's
there. Don't say it. Don't say it. But there's a character. Well, I
oh
guess I
yeah.
can just should I just I won't spoil it. But there is a character who has a very similar death, where there's a moment of aggression. Somebody is killed needlessly. The character tries to talk, and he's like, "Could you just shut up? Let me die in peace." And I don't even know if it was on purpose or accidental, but they were so similar. Well, we're approaching the final confrontation now. Josh, at this point, is the only flesh and blood human left alive of the group. He sits down for a nice dinner, which Patrick is preparing for him. And set up earlier, he's a cook. We saw him making scallops earlier. And Iris is handcuffed to the chair across the table from him. Josh turns her back on and gives his villain monologue. "You pulled some impressive stuff back there, Iris. I just wanted to live," is what Iris says. And you can get into a whole theme. It's that moment gave me Blade Runner vibes because that movie's all about robots who just want to live. Josh tells her, "You were the cause of all this." "No, it was your greed, Josh." Josh retorts, "I deserve this money. The world is bad out there. It's a game rigged against people like me. My apartment is too small. You know how hard it is to fit a green screen back here and get enough space between you and the camera for it to look good? I
Gil,
can't compete with bigger channels."
do you really want to be drawing parallels between you and Josh?
Yeah, Iris tells him, "You prattle on endlessly about what the universe." I mean, it's like this was a theme, and now it's spelled out. It's like you said. That's probably the biggest problem. It's just how explicit and cheesy it becomes once it's explicit.
Yeah, and then you don't leave the movie wondering, hey, what was that movie really about? Because Iris told you, partly.
Yeah, she says it in one sentence. You should allowed me to say it in 15 minutes in a segment of a video essay. You prattle on endlessly about what the universe owes you. I know that you always need to be in control. I know that you have a below average sized phallus. Shouldn't have said that because I think that's what really sets him off. You think having a few $1,000,000 will disguise the fact that you are a sad, weak human being. Josh turns her intelligence down to 0%, which turns her into little more than a lifeless doll. Has her stick her arm out, and then he puts the candle underneath. But she can't speak, she can't do anything. Great acting from Sophie Thatcher. She has to have a silent scream on her face. Like, if I told you, Daniel, I'm directing a scene. All right, imagine that your hand is searing, burning, it's lit on fire, but you can't make a sound. Actually, you know what? I take it back, Sophie Thatcher, because
See, it's easy.
apparently it's pretty easy. No, she did a great job. So Josh picks up a call from Empathics, the company which makes these robots. He reported that he was having a little issue with his, so they're calling to check in. While he's talking to them, he's like, Patrick, can you put that fire out? Because by this point, her hand's actually lit on fire. And then he has Iris shoot herself in the head. The workers show up from Empathics. Josh has Patrick wear the dead cop's uniform. So when the workers show up and they're like, well, the cops should probably be involved because this robot killed a bunch of people. Oh, the cops are involved. And it seems like they checked into everything. It's all good. It wasn't Josh's fault. But for some reason, that cop looks so familiar. Anyway, so we're going to take this dead robot back to the lab, pop her hard drive in, and check out the footage. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Josh is shocked. Footage? Oh, yeah, these robots record everything. Didn't you read the user manual? Well, but, she shot herself in the head. So, I mean, there can't be any good, usable footage on there. Oh, no. Didn't you read the user manual? Her head is just the Wi-Fi and the sensors. The SSD is in her torso, unscathed. Josh is screwed. There's a great moment where the two workers walk outside, and the younger one's like, so what the hell do you think happened? Oh, he definitely modded her. That guy's screwed. So I just love that Josh is like trying to get away with all this, and it's just so nonchalant. And also the way he says it is like, oh, I've dealt with this before. This happens all the time. But also these two idiots, these workers, that guy clearly just killed a bunch of people.
Why would you say anything? Just don't say anything and get out of there. Say oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah, this guy knows what happened. He knows that Josh modded her. And so when Josh is like, oh, there's no usable footage, right? He's in a coded way asking you, am I going to be in trouble? And the stupid worker, instead of saying, no, you're fine. Unfortunately, there won't be any usable footage. And then you go outside. He's like, no, you have to kill me if you want to get away with this. Essentially, by telling him the hard drive is good in there, he's essentially telling Josh, you have to kill me. Which would make sense if the guy didn't know that Josh modded her. If he thought Josh was actually innocent and he was being ignorant, he'd be like, yeah, So Josh sends Patrick after the two workers. Patrick kills one of them. The other one gets away. Patrick goes after him, but by this point, Iris has finished rebooting. So she gets to Patrick before he can kill the guy, and she tries to stop Patrick with a taser. Won't work. We can't attack our own kind.
No, wait. Oh, I thought. Oh, in general, she can't harm anybody, including robots, I guess. Right? Like because her mod was removed by the workers.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so she can't harm anybody at this point. But she has one card left to play. Wait a minute, Patrick. Remember, look deep into your heart. You don't love Josh. You love Eli. And then she parrots back to him. Remember what you said. It feels like fire. It feels like a brightness and an anger inside you. And so then he remembers, oh, wait a minute. I love Eli. What else does he remember? Eli is dead. Don't want to live in a world without Eli. So he tases his own head. And that might have actually fried the hard drive because of the electricity shooting through him. So Iris saved that little worker's life, but she wants a favor in return.
Little worker?
Well, because the other guy was bigger and older. So in my head, that's how I was differentiating them. I did tell myself, don't call him little. And I think by telling myself not to say it, I ended up saying it. So she returns. But the favor she wants in return for saving his life, his little life, is I want you to turn off all the stuff in me that prevents me from having free will. No longer can she not lie. I feel like I'm using a lot of double negatives. She's free. She can lie. She can hurt people. She's a human being now. So she goes back to the house, has a little argument with Josh, a little scuffle. until she sticks the electric wine opener, Chekhov's electric wine opener, into the side of his head. So it starts drilling into his brain. What a great kill. Speaking of Final Destination, they got to put that in the next one.
I also like that it literally removes a chunk of his brain. And there's kind of like that fits thematically well too, right? Which is, I don't know, what's the connection there, right? Is like he was using Iris's sort of programming against her, right? Like he controlled how her own mind worked. But Josh here is just like an idiot and doesn't even deserve his brain. Like let's just yoink that out.
He's probably so dumb. As he was dying, he was like, I'll be fine. The SSD's in the torso. Oh, wait, I'm not a robot. Iris takes a shot. So, okay. This does bother me a little bit. Because, like, didn't Patrick, Eli called the cops earlier.
Oh, they called the cops like at the beginning of the
Hours
movie.
ago.
So I don't understand what was happening the whole movie. I get that they set up that it's very secluded. I don't think it's that secluded. Like it's gonna take 6 hours for cops to get there.
Yeah. He called the cops. You see him on the phone with the cops. Patrick killed a cop on the side of the road.
And then that cop that they killed, he wasn't aware that there were a bunch of murders at Sergei's house. Like the cops were called.
Yeah.
Like
Well, yeah,
so that
the
part of it
cops
just
were
never
called.
made sense.
And okay, let's say Lucky. It's secluded. Cops can't find the place. It's the future, but if you murder a cop in front of his own vehicle, there's nothing that reports that back to headquarters. Okay, you're lucky. Okay, no cops are showing up. But should you not be worried like any second now? Not to mention, Josh called empathics and he reported all these murders. One way or another, cops are going to show up at this house. It looks light out, so presumably she's like slept, waiting until morning. I'm going to take a shower, peel the skin off my hand, look at the metal underneath, grab some clothes, grab some money, just so nonchalant. Like, it doesn't matter. It's the end of the movie. Overall, it's a really good movie. And so I guess you could put this in the category of nitpick. But I don't know. It just felt so dumb to me that she's just like chilling. Then anyway, so she gets in a Corvette or just a car that doesn't have a roof and drives off to begin a new life.
Convertible, you meant.
A convertible. Yeah.
And she waves to somebody with her metal hand as she speeds by.
There you go. So we ended on that kind of negative note, but overall, great movie, I think. Do you have any final thoughts? Any other observations? Philosophically, anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, I generally like the ending. I like that she gets free will and she gets to kind of ride off into the sunset. Like, I was happy with that ending.
Yeah, same overall. I was impressed because this is actually the first feature film made by this filmmaker, whose name I meant to write down, but I forgot to. Companion 2025, written and directed by Drew Hancock. And I got to say, I mean, he has experience. I think he's done short films and other stuff. But for a first feature, this is the first one. It only gets better from here. Can't wait to see what he does next. Can't wait to see what Sophie Thatcher does next. And I got to say, I like talking about good movies. I don't, you know what? This is true of everything. For AI, the middle ground, it's not good. It's not good to be in the middle ground. Talking about movies that you have a lot of problems with, they're okay, you know, that kind of in between, I don't love it. When they're terrible, it can be fun. When they're great, it's fun. So this felt really good.
I agree.
I assume next episode should be largely similar vibe. Captain America, Brave New World, you know?
I say if that movie ends up in the sort of midwit part of the bell curve, we find something else to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Because we talk about a mainstream Marvel movie that just came out. We're going into a sea of people talking about that movie. So it's not like there's a big impetus for us or big pressure. We got to get our Captain America episode out. So yeah, I think let's raise the bar a little bit. If it's great, we'll talk about it. If it's terrible, we'll talk about it. With that, let's wrap it up. You're watching this on I'm not going to get into all the logistics of what channel we're on. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. You'll get more similar stuff. You can find us in any podcast app. If you're on the podcast, you can find us on YouTube. See the link. We're going to go with the new sign off. I think I enjoyed it last time. So,
And before the sign off, if each of you just get 1,000 of your friends to like and subscribe,
we'd have
it's not that
1,000
much to
listeners.
ask. It's not that much to ask, and we'd appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this, leave a comment. Really, it's nice. It's nice when people leave a comment on the podcast, even if it's an angry one.
Yeah, it's true. Well, there are also, again, this is us like trying to get our pithy remarks in, but there are services out there. You were talking about getting 1,000 listeners. I'm aware of services where you can pay for people to like sign up for something or watch something. I would hate if anybody were to do that because we have integrity. We want real listeners. Okay? I'm Gil.
I'm Daniel.
And this is One Take.
One Take.